On this week's episode, I'm excited to have Daniel Alfon on as a guest. Daniel is a LinkedIn expert. He joined LinkedIn in early 2004 and is the author of Build a LinkedIn Profile for Business Success. In this episode, we talk about everything LinkedIn. Join me in welcoming LinkedIn expert Daniel Alfon. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have Daniel Alfon. He's a LinkedIn expert. Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Vijay. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. So LinkedIn is something I just recently started using. I mean, I've had an account for a few years, but never really was intentional about utilizing it. So I'd love to hear more about you, how you got into LinkedIn, and why we should use the platform.
That's a great question. And the truth is, you need to ask yourself, for every platform you use, do you really get something out of it? Because if you use LinkedIn and you're not intentional, like you said, then you may actually find yourself in a position that's not very good. If you use it well. If not, just delete your account and move on. Because everyone Googling your own name or most of our listeners' name will find LinkedIn to be one of the very top results. Don't let LinkedIn call the shots. Don't let LinkedIn defaults run what you want to do. Do what you want to do with the platform. And I signed up for LinkedIn early in 2004. And I got my first sales job in 2006. And I was really scared, Vijay, because I had to carry a quota for the first time. I had to sell it in North America. And the first 6 weeks weren't that great. And playing with LinkedIn showed me at one point the name of this distributor I could contact. And back then, half of our time was dedicated to find the name of the right person we needed within the organization. So the minute I started using LinkedIn systematically just to find the right person, it literally halved my sales cycle. So I had a lot more time. I could close more sales. I doubled my sales from that moment on. And at one point I said, okay, I need to figure this system out because I see it's powerful. And 18 years fast forward to today, I specialized in LinkedIn. That's the only thing I do, really. It's a very powerful and very not user-friendly platform.
Okay, so you've been using this since 2004. And when did LinkedIn come out?
Came out in late 2003. Reid Hoffman and three other. There was soft launch in the summer of 2003, and right now LinkedIn has 820 million users. And since you hit record, probably 1,000 people signed up every second. 2 people sign up.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So it's getting a lot more adoption. And I want to go back to one of your points. You said use it well or don't use it at all. And why is it that LinkedIn gets ranked so much higher than anything else if you're not active on it?
That's a great question, but what Google looks at is not whether you logged in on a weekly or daily basis, but whether it's you. And LinkedIn results rank very highly in Google, even for people who have had tech talks and are published authors, people with Wikipedia pages. In some cases, their LinkedIn profile would still come on top. So that's the reason you need to maintain it, to keep it up to date, and to decide to be intentional about it.
Got it. So now, when you talked when you first started, you were using LinkedIn for sales, and you said just by using this platform, you're able to half the sales cycle. Could you talk about that sales cycle and how it can be beneficial for those of us listening?
Of course, the simple question to ask is, who's your ideal client? So let's say that I was contemplating launching a hedge fund, and the minimal investment for me for potential clients would be X millions of dollars. Can I try to see what characterizes those people on LinkedIn? Or say I have a I want to sell financial education courses to universities. So I need to find within the university, within the Charlotte, North Carolina University, I need to speak to the right person. And LinkedIn will enable you to use advanced searches and see the name of the dean and see the name of the staff, the faculty, and see who is connected to you, Vijay. And that's the real thing. Because the minute you see that you share a mutual connection with the provost or the dean, then the secret is when to leave LinkedIn. And my advice would be to leave LinkedIn. Say you discover that Jane Doe is a mutual connection of yours and she is connected both to you and to your ideal prospect, then simply leave LinkedIn and get in touch with Jane, ask her how she's been, and drop the name of the dean and ask her whether she knows him well enough to make an introduction. And if Jane says yes, introductions will not happen on LinkedIn. They will happen in real life, maybe by email. Maybe you have an event she would attend. Maybe you'll go to an NBA Charlotte Hornets match, and you'll see it doesn't happen on LinkedIn. But LinkedIn is the platform where you could both find the name of the person you were interested in and to see if you connected to people you know well. Then the ability to gain a meaningful introduction is one of the strongest benefits of having a LinkedIn account.
Got it. So you're saying find mutual connections and then message them offline, basically get off the platform, build an organic relationship with someone off the platform to help
You
further
got it?
your business mission. Okay, so what if, I mean, because this is what I do and I'm sure other people do too, you accept everyone's requests whether or not you know them. And I know you're not quite a proponent of accepting everyone and adding random people. So tell me about that.
If you are in a business where trust is important, and if it's a service based business, if it's referral based, then the name of your mutual connection is the name who could open the door or not. And the reason people accept invitations from people they don't know is that they think about maybe being popular or doing what other people do. But a simple question to ask is this right or is this popular? And in some cases, my clients gain revenues, orders, and other people would be interested in likes and views. And but at the end of the day, what we're looking for in business is real life metrics, business metrics. Can you show me how those gazillion connections have translated into revenues? Then I'm all ears. But most people cannot. They speak, in new age terms about exposure, but nothing happens. If you connect organically, you would be able to speak to the VP of Bank of America because you have the right connection.
Got it. So there isn't, so it's more about the quality of the relationships than quantity.
It's deciding whether quality or quantity is the thing. There is another way to do it, which is completely opposite. It means I want to have 30,000 connections on LinkedIn. That's the limit. And that means whenever you share something, VJ, then many people will see it. And that could work in some cases. That could work splendidly. The trouble is, if you only had 2,000 or 5,000, then you don't have significant exposure. And on the other hand, you shot yourself in the foot because you can no longer gain meaningful introduction. Looking again at the dean or the Bank of America VP, when they look you up, they would see the same mutual connections. So let's say they see Jane Doe, with whom you share, you've worked with her and she knows you very well, and some random dude. And the random dude, when he get asked about VJ, he will say nothing. He won't badmouth you, but he will say, you know what, I don't really know. And that's enough for the VP or for your ideal prospect to decide not to continue, because we won't be there to whisper in their ear, this is the person I really know, and all those are people I don't really know. So your profile needs to speak for itself, and ideally your connections should also speak for themselves.
Okay, so I guess in this sense I messed up. I mean, added a bunch of people, and other people listening probably have been on the same boat. What is a good way to fix it, or what's a good way to work around this potential issue?
It's a great question, and only becoming aware of the fact that you need to pick quality or quantity is already a change. And maybe I would reflect it for 1 or 2 weeks. Don't try removing now 2,000 people. Just think about it in the long term. Maybe it would make sense for you or some of our audience here to actually go quantity, but go quantity all the way. That means if you really want to have exposure, you cannot wait for some people to send you like 2 or 3 invitations a week, because it will take you literally years to have significant exposure. On the other hand, if you had a quality network and you only started accepting invitation for people you don't know recently, then maybe it would be a lot easier for you to revert to the quality strategy And that's when you go to LinkedIn and you on desktop you click on My Network. That's second from left on the top navigation bar. On the left, you can see your connections and reorder them by name. So go over the list. And if say you have 80% of the people you know well, maybe 20% you don't know. That's the easiest scenario where it makes sense to keep a quality network. Look at those people you don't know about, the people you don't know well, and decide what you'd like to do with them. You could message them and say, "We connected last year, and I see that you're doing A, B, C." And ask a question that's about them, maybe a way you could help them. Maybe they're interested in options and you have a free resource about options. Now, you're not trying to sell them anything, you're just pointing them in the right direction. Or you see that they've just shared something on LinkedIn and you could help them by providing them with a name of an article or whatever it is. Maybe out of those net LinkedIn relations, you will actually grow into meaningful relationships. On the other hand, if those people don't reply or reply in a way that you're not happy with, then you may remove them. So have a system.
Got it. So it's about having a system, being intentional about whether you want quality or quantity and committing to it and then going for it.
Yeah, committing to it seems too difficult for most people. Or it still amazes me because some of those people, they run budgets of hundreds of millions. They call the shots in they need to decide about hiring hundreds of people, firing it. Like, why does LinkedIn have some magical aspect about it that means we no longer use our common sense? Why?
Let's go a little bit deeper into the quantity because I think that's I guess committed to that without being even aware of it. So when I'm sending out invitations, let's say I have a bunch of pending invitations, is that going to negatively impact anything, or is that just hey, FYI?
It's a good question. You need to understand about the if you're sending a lot of LinkedIn invitations to connect, then if a number of people say I don't know VJ, then LinkedIn will start to limit your own account. Okay, if you only ignore it or don't accept your invitation, that's fine. But if people say report you if you'd like, then LinkedIn no longer shares information about this. But at one point it was when five people flag you or report you, then your account becomes restricted. And by becoming restricted, it means that if you really wanted to send an invitation to someone, you would have to type in their email. And that means in most cases, it's no longer feasible for you to send invitations because people with their email have already been added to your network in most cases. So customizing the invitation text literally reduces the chances of you being reported to zero. So you could simply customize the message. Instead of just hitting connect, add a note and say, last week I watched your interview with ABC and I would like to connect with you. Then even if that person decides not to connect with you, they're not likely to report you because they see you've customized the message and you really made it about them. Incidentally, it actually increases your chances of the invitation being accepted. So it makes sense. And looking at it from your perspective, if you get all sorts of invitations, what you could do with incoming invitations is reply to some of the most intriguing ones. So if you get a gazillion invitations and you want to do something with them, what you could do is go to LinkedIn and in the top navigation bar where it says My Network, you click on My Network, and on the right it would say see all one or see all three invitations. Okay? So what happens when you click on see all X invitations? The word message suddenly appears, and that enables you to click on message and to say, Bradley, thank you very much for sending me the invitation. Can I be of help? There's just a simple question like, I see that you're with XYZ. Is there any way I could help you with? And if the gentleman or the lady don't reply, then you move on. But if they say, yes, I got your name from ABC and I want to discuss with you a JV or whatever it is, then continue the conversation like you would do in real life. Speak with him, have a Zoom call them, whatever it is. Maybe you also connect on LinkedIn down the road.
Got it. Okay. So it's about Okay, let's talk about more about this customized messages. It seems like I get a lot of these requests. People are like, "Hey, I'd love to connect." I accept, and then they try to sell me something, a cold email or a cold message. And I'm based on what the product is. I'm always have an open mind. I'm like, maybe I do need it. I don't know. So I get on the call with them. I'm like, "Hey, okay, I'll buy this." Or most of the time, I'm like, "No, this isn't something I need." And so, what's the best way if to be on the receiving side to handle those, and also if you are the one actually cold messaging, is it even a viable strategy?
Maybe I'll start with the second question because it's a bit easier for me. The cold messaging or the cold connecting on LinkedIn has grown. There's a whole industry. There used to be a whole industry about automation, and LinkedIn cracks down on most of the automation services out there. So at one point, LinkedIn also decided you can no longer send hundreds of invitations a week. So now it's limiting. So LinkedIn slowly tries to make it difficult for automations to occur, and the reasoning of the people or companies using automation say, okay, so we're sending say 2,000 invitations, and maybe 500 will accept, and out of those 500 will auto message them, and maybe 50 will get to a Zoom call, and maybe two will buy. It's still worth our while. Maybe it's worth a while financially when they see the amount of, like say, the two new orders. But what has that contributed to their name in the eyes of 1998 other people got on the call and didn't feel it was professional, people who now associate your services with something that's spammy, that's priceless and not in a good way. And from your perspective, when you get invitations that are you're not sure about, simply replying to that message without accepting limitations would force the other side to show their hands, and then you can decide whether you'd like to have that conversation or whether you'd like to do anything. But your network, be it using my strategy or yours or whatever, is the most important element, not on LinkedIn, in your professional career. You can move from North Carolina to the other part of the country. You could move to California. You could move from financial to whatever it is. But the people you work with, people you grew up with, people you studied with, people you serve now are people who can help you in 2026 get to whatever it is you want to do in 2026. So your network is strategic. LinkedIn is tactical, if you'd like.
Okay, let's talk about the difference between strategic and tactical.
Because networking, if you're in a referral based service, or if most of your referrals, most of your business comes through referrals, then your network is the most important component of your career. And as you know, many people remember their network when there's trouble. So if their company now has gone through Chapter 11, or their major client now has issues, or they're pivoting to something else, then they would remember that there's VJ and Jane and Daniel, and how are you, and how it's been, how's the family. The trouble is that no one really likes it when we remember them only when we need them. And when you think about the cost, keeping in touch with those people when you didn't need anything from them, now maybe Vijay, it would require you to send two emails a year, one for Christmas and one for their birthday. Okay, maybe it would require 3 whole minutes of whatever it is. But I assure you that if you kept in touch with those people without asking anything from them, and 2 years down the road you want to ask that person something, you would feel a lot more comfortable reaching out to that person and asking for whatever it is you want. And they would look at you in a whole different way because you have been there for them, not only when you needed something, but also to help them and simply to ask how they've been. So, strategically, keeping in touch with your network when you don't need anything is not easy, but it's essential, because if you don't do it, then you'll the definition you would have of networking is shoving your business card or offer to people's throat when they have you don't know anything about them, they've never heard of you, and it's really different. It's really trying to keep in touch with people you haven't worked with, but not just when you need to sell something. And the time it would take you to keep in touch with someone is, minutes. The time it would take you to try and get to an influencer when you need to when you have your back to the wall, you'll pay a lot more and you'll get much less.
Got it. So you're saying stay in touch with them, just provide as much value, or just so that way it's not just like calling them out of the blue, asking them for something. It's they're more than happy to help you just because you were able to keep that relationship watered if it was a plant.
Exactly. And the good thing about it is that if you do it when you don't need anything, then you, VJ, could say, I've met maybe 30 new people this quarter. I'm going to pick only two people I really enjoyed working with. But I'm no longer working with them because they moved or they do something else. But you can pick the ones you really enjoy having a conversation with. Whereas if you don't do anything and you wait and there's trouble, then you need to act differently. So it's exactly what you did, and if you do it on a consistent basis when you know you don't need anything from them, you can keep the relationship that matter to you, because those people will be able to help you down the road, to give you the name of someone you need to speak you they will help you because you're helping them.
Got it. Does this need to be on a one-on-one type of basis, or if you were to post consistently, I guess on LinkedIn or social media, does that do the trick, or is that not at all relevant?
I read on your bio about the Mountain Dew, your first one of the first sales you did, and I also listened to the episode you had with Malik McRae about the way they started in business, and his first sale. I'm afraid it's usually one to one. It's one to one because automation, when you send a generic message to 50 people and there's no other way you can send something to 50 people, then most people will assume that someone else will handle it, or they perceive you to not really care about them. So you know what? Instead of just sending a generic message to 50 people, pick one person, and it will be enough for you, because if you pick one on one and you manage to keep in touch with that person, it's already better than not having anything. And you don't need large numbers. 3 people you've been in touch with could help you doors, and 10 people you've enjoyed working with could refer 3 new clients to you. Like, what is the number of people you could stay in touch with without needing anything from them, say on every quarter or every month? VJ, you could say one person, that's fine. But if you do it one person consistently, then you'll have 4 people this year and 16 people in 4 years time, and those people will refer business to you. If you can say, you know what, I'm going to double that and go to 2 people a quarter, that's fine. Whatever it is you think you can be consistent with.
Got it. So I understand it's all very relationship based, and just looking at, I'm a huge automation kind of guy, so it kind of conflicts, right? And so I'm looking at potentially systematizing building stronger relationships. Like you said, once one person a quarter. Are there people that kind of, I mean, just like put it on their calendar saying, hey, follow with this person, follow with this person. So it's on a rolling basis. So basically once a week you're talking to someone new, but overall it's kind of you touch base with them every 3 months.
That's a great suggestion because it could work if you use a. I'm a fan of recurring calendar one-on-ones with myself, and plus some task I want to do. If you could, for example, say that every week or every month, whatever works for you, um, let's try to combine both the prospecting aspect and the relationship aspect. Say you need to speak with one new prospect every week. Can you also add, like, trying to keep in touch with nurturing one relationship a week? If that's the case, then you simply go to the next to someone you've been in touch with 6 months ago, or you pick the list from the name from your connections on LinkedIn or whatever works for you, and you message them, but you message them in a meaningful way, meaning you actually visit their profile, you look at their activity, and you see what has changed since last time. A quick way to do it, it's not automated, but it's easy, is to use or leverage the notifications bar that you see on top of your LinkedIn desktop profile, because it will tell you about people who have updated their profile, starting new positions, being promoted, or moving from the one company to the other. And instead of just messaging or say congrats, where you'd be number 44 saying congrats, then actually go to their profile, go to their contact info, copy their email, and go to your Outlook, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever it is, and send them a message. And you will stand out from 90% of the people who just said congrats and moved on. And by sending that message, actually ask them and try to visit their profile. And the fact that they have updated their profile saying they started a new position does not necessarily mean, VJ, they started today. In some cases, they started 6 months ago. So it doesn't make sense to say congrats. You would say, I see that you started back in July. How is it going? And you would stand out from 99.5% of people who assume that they just started now without taking the time to see what's happening there. Maybe that person is actually looking for something else, and they would appreciate you even asking. Just appreciating you asking is already something. And the birthday is also a simple thing to do. Obviously, now you have 3,000 connections, so maybe it would be 8 birthdays a day. I'm not sure it's feasible. But if you connect with, you know what, even if you could pick out of those 8 birthdays, one person, two people that are important to you. Like if you have them in buckets, then maybe 10% of your network is strategic. And those VIP need to hear from you once a year, once a quarter, what you decide. So if you manage it and you say, I want and I think it's important for me to keep in touch with that person at least once a year, and you limit it to something workable, then even if you have 30,000 connections and you keep in touch with 300 people, keep in touch with the 300 people that matter to you in the long run. Sounds like maybe it's feasible.
Absolutely. That's incredible advice. So this whole conversation you're talking about quality over quantity, and that's the thing that just keeps hitting me over and over again in such a good way. So really appreciate that. Everything we do, it's about the one-on-one type of relationship you're building with people, and focusing all your efforts on that will be able to do significantly better results for everyone involved, not just yourself, but also for them, and gives you, I guess, a better outlook, or gives you a better output.
Yeah, the automation thing could go, maybe sharing could be automated. Maybe when you have something like that, it could be automated. But the relationship aspect is best managed one on one. So maybe you could automate parts of your LinkedIn activity and focus on the individual relationships you want to nurture and you want to grow. Okay, maybe you had the first meeting with an influencer or very significant person last week. When you go to that meeting, you see you may have worked, VJ, to get that appointment. It may have taken you 3 months, and you know it's very important. So when you go to that interview, when you go to that meeting, ask yourself, what are they interested in? And that will enable you to ask questions to focus about them and not about us. And if you know what's interesting for them, then without looking for it, in 2 weeks or 2 months, you will find an article, a supplier, something that will resonate for them. And then you message them and you say, maybe that could be of interest to you. And in that, also a simple way to nurture the relationships, you don't scout content for them. But if I understand that the most important thing for you professionally is X, then the minute I read about X, I will think of you. And I don't mean harassing that person. Maybe it's even once a month, once a year, once a quarter. It'll be enough. So, what is the most important thing for you, young man?
What is the most important thing for me?
Yeah.
Right now it's start in the startup phase, so in the capital raising phase. So it's building relationships with other higher net worth individuals or institutions who are just sitting on cash, who don't really know what to do with it. So it's more of a, I'm providing a value to help people grow their money.
In the last 3 months, have you met someone who could put you in touch with high value individuals?
Yes, I have.
Are you keeping in touch with that unnamed individual?
I am.
Cool. You're an outstanding student, like you knew it.
Yeah, it's just good to hear from the expert and hear more about what I should and shouldn't be doing. So I appreciate it. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about what should actually be on the LinkedIn profile and what should not be on there.
Excellent. So the simple framework I would suggest is asking yourself, Vijay, who's your ideal reader on LinkedIn? Now, for some of our listeners here, it could be their next client. If they're looking, or if they're talents, then it may be their next hiring manager. So simply asking yourself, who's the ideal reader you want to attract in the next 6 months? So would it be right assuming that high value individuals would be your ideal readers on LinkedIn?
Or connectors as well, such as attorneys or accountants who also work with higher net worth individuals.
Excellent. A tactic you could use is leveraging your LinkedIn activity to find attorneys who could put you in connectors. For example, attorneys who could put you in touch with the individuals you would serve. And one way to do it, instead of just harassing our own connections, is either to run a search for the attorneys you'd like and then to seek introductions to them, or to look for attorney groups on LinkedIn. Well, most people on LinkedIn, you've joined 14 or 15 groups and they're of interest to you. So think about the attorneys. What groups would they join? And if you join some of those groups, then you could network with them simply by reading who they are, occasionally, maybe not even that, sharing something educational within that group. That could mean that down the road, some people will call you and say, I've noticed that you've done A, B, and C. I have an individual who sits on a pile of money and they have some issues. Let's see if we can work about it. So attorneys or connectors in general, you could also update your profile saying, I work with high net individuals and also attorneys who could A, B, C. Like the attorneys reading this could easily understand what you bring to the table. Your own LinkedIn profile rocks. Your about section is easy to read. It's excellent. I'm looking for the word account attorney. I can't say it's prominent here. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't see it here.
You're right. So you're saying that we need to be explicit about our connectors, even though they're not our end client.
I think the question that's best asked is, are connectors part of your strategy? Like for your individual business, do you think that connectors have a place? Some of our listeners will say, no, I go to the end user, that's fine. But if your answer is yes, connectors are interesting for me, then it's best to address them specifically and to spell it out for them.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about some myths that people have about LinkedIn. And I know you have a few, so I'm excited to hear about this.
Thank you very much, Vijay. There are many myths about LinkedIn. Maybe we could touch on a couple of them. The first myth I would try to discuss is the fact that many individuals still think that their company page on LinkedIn is more important than their own LinkedIn profile. And it may be true for other platforms, but on LinkedIn, unless you employ thousands of employees, your profile is where the action happens. You may run a hedge fund that's worth billions of dollars, but if you don't have a staff of 2,000 people, then the page on LinkedIn will be almost static. Nothing will happen there because the natural action on LinkedIn is not to follow the page. Okay, when I visit the Kailash page on LinkedIn, then you have 25 followers. But when I visit your own profile, you have close to 3,000 followers. And that would be the case for most of our people, or most of our listeners, and most of our audience here. Forget about the page. It has to be there, it has to be static. Check it every 3 months. That's fine. But the actual day to day marketing will not happen on the page, it will happen on your individual profile. When you connect with someone, you have access to their email usually. You can take the conversation outside of LinkedIn, like we said earlier. Shall I go to another myth? Is that okay?
Yes, yes, please.
So if you're not looking for a job because you're a consultant or a coach or you run an SMB or an entrepreneur, then think about your LinkedIn profile not as a CV but as a website. And what I mean by that, it doesn't really matter for your audience whether the years you've been with PNC ended it in 2021 or 2029. It's what you understood working there that helps you serve them today. So instead of focusing on the times you've worked there in the experience section, think of your profile as a website that needs to convert your ideal reader. Question number one, who's your ideal reader? Question number two, what action would you like those people to perform once they visit your profile? And you could say, go to my website, or reach out to me, or schedule whatever it is you say. Are we providing them with information that is likely to make them say, I need to speak to VJ because of this or that?
That's great. So it's about figuring out who your ideal reader is and then have them take an action. And I I guess I haven't really personally thought about it, who my ideal reader is. I'm just like, hey, this is a value I can provide without actually necessarily tailoring it properly.
Maybe if you could enter like a new recurring event every 6 months, asking yourself who your ideal client is, and usually you would know. What all it would take is that you would look at your online presence, your website, and your LinkedIn profile, and you would say, is this aligned with what I'm saying today? Like when someone asks me who's the ideal client and I say XYZ, do what people see on my website or my LinkedIn profile, is this aligned with what I'm looking? Because maybe you would pivot, maybe you'll find a niche within what you're looking, or maybe the hedge fund will do something due to regulation, technology, whatever. We can't know in 6 months what your future direction will be. But if in 6 months you decide that your ideal readers are now more X, then try to reflect that on LinkedIn and your social media in general. It will take minutes usually.
Got it. So you're saying have a sit down, reevaluate where you currently are, and see if your social media presence matches what your goals are.
Yes, sir. Because if it's not aligned, then you may attract clients who are not exactly your target audience while leaving out people who would hesitate and say, I'm not sure I should reach out to you. So spell it out for them. And first, spell it out for yourself.
Appreciate that. Do you have a piece of advice for someone who's just getting started in entrepreneurship on how to utilize LinkedIn or just any advice related to business?
Maybe one thing I would suggest is after they've started using LinkedIn and they set up a decent profile, I could share with you a link for the show notes about how to build a free resource about how to build a decent LinkedIn profile, and also a giveaway about the headline. That's very important. And my advice would be this: ask someone they're not connected with to show them how their LinkedIn profile looks, because in some cases they would be amazed because they would have a profile photo, but the person sitting next to them would not see a photo. And what's important is not what we see on our profiles, but it's what the prospects see. And that would make them understand that there's a setting they need to check whether their profile is actually visible, whether their photo is actually visible. And LinkedIn generally shows you all sorts of editing options that people don't have. So seeing it from someone else's perspective can help you, Vijay, understand that now I see X and Y and Z, but I would like them to see this instead. So thank you very much. And now you go to your profile, you tweak it, you reorder it, you remove parts, you change it in order to be aligned with what you'd like. Don't fall in love with a mirror. Try to ask someone else to show you what they see, and if there's a gap, they win.
I think that's great advice. Figure it out how other people see it rather than how you view it. Do you have a favorite business book?
I love the list on your website with books, the Blue Ocean and Bo Berg and many more. There's actually a North Carolina gentleman that is an expert on sales with the Sales Bible and the little red book. You know who I'm referring
I
to?
think I've heard of those. What's it called?
Gitomer. Gitomer. The name is is Jeffrey Gitomer, and he has I found his writing to be thought provoking and interesting. Not easy. I mean, it's readable. It's very easy to read, but he made me ask some tough questions along the way. So I read two of his books, and I think they're worth a read. Jeffrey Gitomer.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation. Where can our audience get in touch with you?
Thank you very much, VJ. The best place is to go to danielalfon.com. And there's a giveaway there, a cheat sheet helping them craft their ideal profile headline. And I'd appreciate anyone checking it out and downloading it. And there are all sorts of articles and free stuff on my website as well. And how much time after this episode is released should I look for the word attorney in your own LinkedIn profile?
For me, geez, I think almost immediately. I think it's a great thing that I need to change. So I appreciate your feedback on that.
Excellent. I'll do it.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Daniel. Pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot.